So I'm going to start recording, and Glenn Lyvers. I'm going to share my screen. I don't know that everybody will have the ability to do this, but sometimes I think people like to see the line breaks. I just wrote this poem. It's basically a first draft, but I wanted to do something about 2020. I didn't want to do something that was really upbeat, that was like, oh, it's all going to be great, and I didn't want to be all gloom and doom. I sort of settled in the middle where it's just something we're going to have to deal with. So it's just 2020 is the thing, and I'm probably not going to send this out. This is just for this group. We interrupt this message to inform you that some horrible thing happened to someone you don't know somewhere far away, and our complete lack of respect for the victim's privacy is brought to you by Xanax. I turn off the TV, and the yellow dog that never cared all that much for me paces briefly past the love seat before jumping up to splay her body across my aging legs. And I can't help but feel her disappointment that my legs are not my wife's and my feet have no pink slippers. And there are no balls of yarn being wound by rhythmic hands. I think I must be getting a taste for what my wife felt every evening sitting in this chair with our yellow dog. And it really is quite nice being chosen to be a splayed upon companion, trapped by a dog across my legs, because I dare not move a muscle and risk disturbing the old girl who spent the day pacing the house, looking in vain for a lost mother. I'll never be able to explain in terms a dog could understand that I couldn't bring her back home, and that they shut off the ventilator before I was allowed to say goodbye. This house is as quiet as clay. The furnace seems to have gone out because it feels colder somehow. Yellow dog is my last reason to live, and she isn't breathing anymore.
Oh my goodness.
It occurs to me in these numb, small hours that my wife would say, as a poem, it's cliche, but it has good bones, she'd offer up. And I'd joke about the bones in a dog poem before heading out to the barn for a shovel.
Heartbreaking poem.
I think that that last stanza really helped that poem because it was kind of getting cliche. The whole yellow dog thing, right? All right. Chuck, let's start with you.
Okay.
Introduce yourself and
All right.
take some time to.
My name is Chuck Wheeler. I'm just recently moved back to the U.S. I'd been teaching in China at a university for 12 years. I went there to convince my now wife to marry me. In China, I taught thousands of students. I taught literature, poetry, culture, even remix culture, film. I developed a poetry class for the university I was teaching at. And in China, I was also a monthly magazine editor and weekly newspaper writer. So I was the foreign editor and chief writer while I was there. And when my wife and I came back to the US, we live about 10 minutes from the ocean. And having lived in such a dense urban population for so long, nature really struck me hard. And so during the COVID, I wandered a beach, the same piece of beach, and my wife and I would go fishing. And so I wrote this poem about a time we went fishing when everything's raging around us. It's so quiet at the lake. And so it's called the Ode to Quietude. And I was surprised that I could hear the geese, the wings of the geese as they're flying over. So the Ode to Quietude. A tight formation of geese, smoothly snip, 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 like tailor's shears, slicing through the airy fabric of the sky. The aerial ballet rises slowly, sets of twins reflected on the mirror lake. A murder of scattering crows rip the air like a dozen children, boisterously cutting paper art. Their crackling cacophony, countered by the guttural squawk of a heron, cantankerously settling beneath a willow. Calmness returns like a nestling red-winged blackbird perched in the cattails. The plunk of the sinker pierces the lake as the high-pitched whir of this reel playing out harmonizes with the bobber's plop, a bullseye formed of ever-expanding rings. The attention drifts along the pine-scented breeze. The golden sun, wearing the treetop like a lacy ball gown, eludes the silvery horns of the rising crescent moon. Cool breezes slide over the skin like saxophone riffs at midnight. Snuggled up in nature's sweet blanket, sprinkle the soul with the blessings of peaceful moments of eternity. And that's my poem.
Thank you. Very nice. I remember when I read Plunk.
Plunk. It's difficult to do the onomatopoeia to try to get the sounds correctly.
I don't know. Has anybody else been fortunate enough to sit on the edge of a lake or river or the ocean and just watch birds fishing, and the way they go in?
Herons.
Yep. Every year.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was inspired by Emerson and Thoreau as a teacher and as a writer, and recently being back in nature really encourages me. So now I'm finishing my novel, so that's my goal.
Is this your first novel?
No, it's the first one I'm really focused on doing correctly. It's my second or third one. That's I have all this time now in the pandemic. I thought, okay, well, let's do this right. It's
Where were you teaching in China?
I taught in Hangzhou. It used to be the ancient capital of the Song Dynasty, where Marco Polo visited. And then I taught in the south in Guangxi, which is where my wife is from. She's from a southern tropical area.
In the mid-'70s, I taught in Taipei. My wife is from Taiwan, but
in Taiwan, yeah.
I met her over here, but yeah, she's from Taiwan.
I met my wife online, and we fell in love, and we met after a year, and I decided to move there. My 3 kids said, go for it. They're all grown up now, so.
How's your Mandarin?
Wo shuo de bu hao.
Bu hao, bu hao. Yeah, me too.
Bu hao. All I know is how to say ting budong. I don't understand.
I can't get the tones.
And after a while, the tones don't really matter because, depends on where you're at in the mainland.
Just if I may, just one quick anecdote, it does matter because I tried learning to say I am a teacher last one night.
Yeah.
And I said something and my class broke up. And Asian students, they stand when you come in the room, they're very respectful. Yeah. They're literally rolling on the floor laughter. So I said, okay, what did I say? Because in Mandarin, if you hit the wrong tone, it's a different meaning.
It's a completely different word. Wo sure, lao sure.
The one puts up and says, someone puts up a sentence. Teacher, you say, I'm a mouse.
Yeah, lao shu.
That was it. And never again did I speak Mandarin. That was it. That was done.
No, I don't speak it in front of students.
Everybody has I think, a foreign language faux pas.
Oh my, yes.
When my first trip to Mexico, I was immersed in the culture and I used a lot of cognates, words that sound like English words. Right. I wanted to say I'm embarrassed, and I said, soy embarazada, which means I'm pregnant. It was...
You work past that, though.
Yeah.
Suzanne Catrell, would you be with us?
No, I've been studying Italian for about 10 years with a private tutor, and it's very easy to make mistakes in Italian. And the word for surprised female is soppressa in Italian, but it's because of the way the grammar is constructed. A rookie mistake is to say sorpressata, but sorpressata is a sausage. So if, I've more than once really says,
that I'm a
surprised that I was a sausage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's a commercial that I saw on TV yesterday from one of the language study things, and it said, speaking a second language means getting it wrong, doing it badly for a while or something. And it's so true. You just got to do it. You got to be fearless, otherwise you will never make progress. I think, Claudia, you're bilingual, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Romania. So
Yeah.
English is my second language.
Oh, and you write poetry and you're published in
In
English.
English.
That's great.
That is impressive. That is very impressive to me. Okay, let's get Suzanne Catrell up on the podium here. Are you ready?
Okay. I live in rural North Carolina, central North Carolina. So I'm north of the Raleigh-Durham area, but almost on the Virginia line. So we have lots and lots of wildlife. So I am very much an outdoor enthusiast and nature lover. And I'm a retired teacher. And I didn't get into this writing journey until I was retired. So I am an emerging writer, learning a lot, but having a wonderful time. I wrote the poem Remembrance, and that's what I'm going to read. Ruby-throated hummingbirds, red admiral butterflies, await warm nectar within funnel-shaped yellow, orange, pink gladiola blossoms. My grandmother's etched glass vase sits on the dining room table, awaits her favorite early summer black
You're frozen.
towering spires with colorful blossoms will grace my flower garden and complement my grandmother's vase. Show-stopping spectacular blooms will eclipse the delicate fragrance. I sit at the oak table, sip a cup of hot tea, picture a freshly cut bouquet. Short-lived beauties like grandma remain etched in my memory.
Suzanne, can you, I'm sorry to
What?
ask.
No, what?
I didn't know, but you got frozen there.
Oh,
We're all friends here. Why don't you do it again?
that's entirely up to you, or I have the other one.
I'd like
Yeah,
clarity.
which I had told Glenn before. Living in a rural area, internet service is very spotty and very sporadic, and so I am at its mercy, I guess. The poem was Remembrance. Ruby-throated hummingbirds, red admiral butterflies await warm nectar within funnel-shaped yellow, orange, pink gladiola blossoms. My grandmother's etched glass vase sits on the dining room table, awaits her favorite early summer black star gladioli with velvety maroon blooms cradled by sword-shaped leaves. Towering spires with multiple colorful blossoms will grace my flower garden and complement my grandmother's vase. Show-stopping spectacular blooms will eclipse the delicate fragrance. I sit at the oak table, sip a cup of hot tea, picture a freshly cut bouquet. Short-lived beauties like grandma remain etched in my memory.
It's very nice. Very
Thank you.
nice.
Appreciate it.
We have someone else coming in. You know, I'll tell you what I liked about that poem. All the colors. Something poetic about just hearing all of those different colors. It worked for me. I just felt like that really did something. Okay, Michael. Well, let me just give this person a chance to come in. Eleanor Cantor is joining. Let's give her a chance to get seated.
I just wanted to say that in some of the recent Zooms I've been in, when people have trouble with freezing, they find if they turn their camera off while they're reading and just do the audio, it seems to work better and you don't cut out.
Okay, good advice. Let's see here. It's got a few people trying to sneak in here. Michael Watterson, we're going to have you read next.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great, thank you. I've just got a couple of short poems. My son just turned 30. And one of the things you don't realize until you're a parent is the anxiety that arrives. I believe it was Shakespeare who said, children are hostages to fortune. And I wrote this back in grad school when he was about, well, probably no more than a year or so old. A heart attack as you toddle toward the stairs, blissful, oblivious of gravity, never mind mortality. Curiosity proofing latch and lock, the house under siege. I barricade danger from tiny fingers. Rumor is a nightmare of foreboding, swimming pool drain eviscerations, leukemia dripping TVs. Your first word, hot, reverently whispered to the oven door. I also learn words anew. As we move toward common ground, you in ascendance, me in declension, while I cling to blind faith, you'll soon conquer stairs, but today I catch you in midair.
Oh, that's great. Very nice.
Thank you. And this is the one that was accepted for Poetry Quarterly. I coached my son's Little League team for a year when he was 9 years old. And what you quickly discover is that the kids are just there for a good time. It's the parents who are just viciously competitive. And so this is called Small Ball.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember this poem.
With the batter up, my son throws back his head, gazing from right field into cloudless blue, as if the sun were a lazy fly ball. 9-year-old focus drifts like thistle seed on June breeze, no thought to rivalry or rhubarb. Choke up, stay down, my barking commands less attention than the robin landing on first base. To the ire of parents, shouting visions of glory, yearning for their own dream season. Thank you.
I remember when I read that, I thought, that's a little upbeat compared to some of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, it's actually, I actually had great memories. And the parents aren't, most of them are not that bad, but you do find the kids are a joy to play with. And the more you look at it as play, the more rewarding I think it is. So.
I know we have a few people that just came in, Nish, Eleanor, JB Elliott. So this is the format that we're following. I'll call on people and they have a few minutes to read. And then if anybody wants to say a word or two, and then we move on. So you're in the rotation. Thank you very much for coming. I'm looking forward to hearing your work. The next person is poet Peter Yaremko.
Hello. Do I need to do anything on my end?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay. I started as a newspaper guy in New York City, and I spent most of my career in corporate work, writing various kinds of things, a lot of speech writing. And I operated my own communications company for about 25 years. I've been writing poetry for the last 5 years. Started after my wife died. It got very quiet around the house. And I've got about 15 published so far, written 30. The last 10 years I've been living in Puerto Rico. Today I'm in Connecticut living with my daughter. I'm on my way to my next adventure somewhere. And the poem I'd like to read for you is called Hawk Shadow. And it's based on my experience at my house in Puerto Rico. One morning taking a shower in the outdoor shower, when I saw a shadow zip across the wall in front of me. I turned around and found that it was in fact a hawk passing by. So I wrote this. The fleeting shadow of a red-tailed hawk whisked my naked shoulder this morning. The resurrected sun had caught her passing between dawn and dewy ground. It's the day's first miracle. I didn't recognize such a spectral touch until I turned and saw her above, beneath two clouds, circling silently as butterflies' breath. Wings spread wide as dying Christ, her sight sharper than my own, gaze fixed below to course her prey. She rides the rising draughts of this cock-crow hour, yet captive to earth by a taste for ashy-faced mice and glow-stick green geckos. Unearned gifts these, from her creator and mine, and for us both, our daily bread, just a prayer away.
Thank you for sharing that. A lot of imagery in that poem, you know, the resurrected sun and so forth. There's layers there. I remember I've gone back and read that a few times. Very nice.
Thank you.
Marcus Benjamin Ray Bradley. That's his pen name.
I publish under my full name. It's 2 middle names. There may be other Marcus Bradleys out there, but probably not one with 2 middle names. I live in Central Kentucky, and I work for the University of Kentucky in IT. But I kind of fell in love with poetry when I took a free class there in my late 30s. I've been published 12 times in Poetry Quarterly. I had a really good run there for years. I've got 2 that I'd like to read. The first one is called Sculpture. And Glenn, this was published in summer of 17. My mother once told me that she'd look at my grandmother's hands when she was a little girl, sitting quietly in church, and would always feel sorry for her because they looked so old that she could have been wearing gloves made of elephant hide. She went on to say that when her own hands began to wrinkle after she had children of her own, that she didn't feel deserving of pity because she understood then that her hands had worked hard to mold my brother and I into who we had become. I remember thinking that this was just something she had started telling herself to help cope with aging, since it can't be recognized by looking in the mirror each day, but only by skipping large sections of our family photo album. Besides that, I secretly knew that I was my own person, who possessed an individuality strong enough to overcome any influence of my mother's. But I'd play along if it would help sweeten her years with grace as they marched from silver to golden. Now that I'm a father, I've begun to realize the truth in her statement, and that there is an art form to showing your children how to live their lives without ever making them feel like clay. The second one's also involving a family member, but more abstract.
Well,
This one's called Grandfather. Yes, I'm sorry.
that was a great poem. Let's get some feedback from some other people besides me. Suzanne, what about you? What do you think about that one?
I had to unmute there, sorry. I like the progression of the poem and the emotional connection that came through was quite touching.
Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking, what do your hands tell you? What do different body features, tell about your life? So that was very beautifully done. Thank you.
That is a good poem, Mark. It's quiet. It's a quiet poem,
I found myself doing that multiple times where it's something I remember growing up, my parents doing, and now I find myself doing. So I've done that in a few poems, but I like that one the best.
I like the image of the elephant skin gloves. That woke me up.
Yeah. Okay, you have another one?
Yeah, one more called Grandfather. This one you picked for winter of 17. So both of these were published in that year. I've been here as long as you can remember, one of few constants in a wavering world, anchoring the edge of the family room that was once the center of our pastimes. People used to regard my size and stature, my busy hands, both reliable and accurate, were looked upon to learn and understand the things that only I could show them. I'd be wound on a regular basis, those that lovingly turned the key, the deliberate gesture that I needed, sustained me with life and purpose. These days, most people just scurry past, checking smart devices or digital watches. The children don't want smart, archaic Roman numerals. I chime in to remind them I'm still here, usually having to make my own opening in conversations I used to be the heart of, but now listen to like a fly on the fringes. These visits dwindle like fading light now that my time has come and gone. It will continue to tick by however slowly until the day they forget to wind me.
I'm so glad you wrote it from the grandfather's point of view.
I love hearing the old people reread their poems that we published years ago because I have a unique perspective. It's like I fall in love with these poems. I go back and I know that a lot of editors might think this is vain, but I like to go back, pull an old book off the shelf that I published, you know, a dozen years ago and read it. And then sometimes it's like a snapshot. You kind of remember what you felt when you read it the first time, and just really nice. That was good.
Thank you, guys.
Julie Dixon.
Funny that you said you were looking for poems that were from the past, because I was just actually finding them, and I found one from 2015, and it's called I'd Never Make You Cry. And what's kind of interesting about this one is Glenn normally doesn't print poems that have rhyme, and he made an exception for this poem. So I felt a little bit honored. If I were a man, I'd wear a felted hat, walking tall down the dark street, a knowing glance to those I meet. If I were a man, I'd have my arm around your shoulder, proud to be seen with you, a treasure come real and true. If I were a man, I'd never make you cry. I'd recognize your strengths and good, revel in your worth I would. But I'm not a man. I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. Even if I could choose, I'd never make you cry.
Nice.
Thank you. If you don't mind, could I just read a second one now, because I have another meeting in a while, and this is a humorous one, and I thought maybe people would like a little humor today. This is called The Pink Fabric Clown, and it's a true story about when I was 7. I first saw the pink fabric clown from where I was perched on a windowsill in a hospital room, against the wishes of attending nurses and my mother. The pink fabric clown was held by my grandmother, her brilliant white hair shiny with aquanet, as she stood in the parking lot with my father and brother. In disbelief, my eyes traveled to the strange clown doll in her hand and to my brother, who held a red fabric clown, twin to the pink in all other ways. Grandmother waved as she handed the pink fabric clown to my father, and he made his way upstairs to my room. I already hated the pink fabric clown, who was blameless but somehow became the scapegoat for my anger. At age 7, I had fallen victim to mono, and my beloved brown stuffed dog was taken, an unsuspecting casualty, callously tossed into the trash bin in the garage. Stuffed dogs couldn't be washed. Germs, my mother explained as I grieved. I dreamed of brown dog's sad demise while holding the pink fabric clown in a chokehold, as if responsibility lay in the flat plastic face with painted eyes, or the arms and legs of quilted fabric, and somewhere within my sleep, I flung the innocent pink fabric clown to the cold tile floor.
Something about the saying the pink fabric over and over. This really drives it home. It's great. It makes you feel like you're there somehow. It's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. If you can stay, great. I hope you do. But if you can't, I understand. We all do. We all understand. I'll just speak for everybody, I guess. Sivan Spector.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sivan. I'm really excited. This is my first time getting published in Poetry Quarterly. I am a poet and an actor and puppeteer and also a theater teacher, and I am based in Chicago. So this is a poem this is the poem I'm getting published, and it's a poem that I wrote about my hometown. The title of the poem is Homebound. He follows me into my bedroom, empty 9 months till this morning. My brother has a flash of irony in his eyes, shuffling side to side, presses me further into the doorframe, news tight as a stone in the bone of my gut. Another death, more creative, more brutal, a leap off the Golden Gate. Eternally overachieving, turns out habits follow even in death. I don't want to hear it. Gossip and his obstruction of my exit, while shadows of my misunderstood self trail around the house. Hurried probes of why does this pandemic take so many lives when we have it all? Suicide hand-me-downs from my time wound down to my brother, and I am homebound. I don't know what to say anymore, he says, and I don't know what to do about it. He follows me down the hall, murmuring low. I left this place and stayed away. In the city, our shadow selves are only rats, following our trails of trash, but they fear the light and scamper. The death I know is a size 2 and has an iPhone 26. She rides self-driving Ubers and earns 6 figures, not to mention expects constant perfection. And when her slender shadow comes whispering, you don't want to live, I whip around, say, I don't want to live where you come from, death. Get away from me. Go back to those golden hills and thirsty summers. You don't belong in this humid city. I have cut my roots off to prove it. And death sniggers, slinks away, hints something how she doesn't mind. I don't belong homebound anymore. She still does. I thought I'd shaken my shadows off the scent, but my brother presses me around the house. I hear death's giggle stalking sweet among cedars and junipers in our yards, homebound. I had missed this clement house for once. Sliding doors open wide and fridge full of fresh nectarines. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We didn't, you might have thought we have a lot of COVID stuff in the 2 forthcoming issues. We don't. That was one of the better ones that was picked out of the group. I had to keep trimming down. I loved the sense of family and this whole being at home thing, and causes us, there's this narrative on top of, I think, this poem about how we start to see things differently when life changes. And yeah, I did like that, and you read it very well. Thanks for all the passion.
Thank you.
David Anthony Sam, are you here? I know you've been popping in and out. No, he's not. We'll come back.
No, I'm here. I just mute everything because if you have it on speaker view and I sneeze, it jumps to me, and you don't want to see my ugly face too often. Hi, David Anthony Sam. I use all 3 names because David Sam short. I've been writing for decades. Started writing seriously in 1968. So you can see by looking at me or by that how old I am. Done various things, been a salesman, ran a music store, owned it for a while, back into higher ed, did student services, various roles in community college, ended up a president here in Virginia at Germanna Community College, and retired 3.5 years ago. But I've kept on writing because I don't know why. And I have 1,348 rejections so far. So I'm shooting for at least a couple thousand before I die, and have been published a few times in various places, and happy that actually more than a few, couple hundred. But anyway, I thought maybe a December poem might be appropriate. I have been writing a lot of, I've got a collection around COVID, probably everybody does. It's up to about 50 pages so far, but enough of that. So how about kind of a narrative poem, maybe? December Cenotaph. I'm old, but not yet so old I cannot burn, he says, watching as the fire of his memory flares with the sap still left in dry wood. I've been iced before, had to make heat from the dead wood gathered from under snow, had to blow all my insides out into a small hope of flame that one match had started in browned moss, while my winds were strong with winter. He tries to bank embers of younger lust aglow, but something cold blows through him, and the weak flames shudder like a candle about to go out. I'm not certain how my mind has taken me down paths I thought I knew, but turned out wrong when I walked them again today. These twists in the way seem to break the pieces of my remembering, like the sunlight fractured by the slow turning of leaves in the wind. He stubs his boot into the soil around the fire, loosing sparks, sending one pebble into the heat where it sizzles, then bursts with a crack as all the juices it had sucked in from the earth were released into the air. My mind is a slow cinema, a herky-jerky silent movie with frames melted by too much focus on one scene that should have been edited away long ago. He tastes the black blood as he swallowed it back into his bile, shivering like the boy of 17, desperate to love a girl in the clumsy back seat of his father's blue Ford. We should have run naked downhill, grabbed the vine, and swung out to fall into the old pond. That's what I want to remember, not the fear, not the waiting alone, not the awful betrayal of every urge inside. Once he did swing out after the high hot sun, didn't he? He did fall to shatter the quiet pond, sending a flurry of frogs splatting from sunning logs into the greenish cool water. See, yes, I did once burn. I still can burn. He hugs his arms around the coldness of the winter day, watching the fire weakly wavering in this spare spot amid the drifts of powdered snow. I'd hate to think my fire went out that summer. I'd hate to think decades of wanting a different August have damped me so I can't remember how to start a scratch fire. He smiles, remembering or making memory. It really doesn't matter. A boy walked naked from the water, hand in hand with bear love, and she smiled bright with her evanescent youth. kissed him there on the bank before they went back to the promise of the Ford's comfortable back seat. See, I still burn. The fire at his feet flicks sparks of hissing wet wood as he hugged life from his wavering memory. He sits still on a cold log, waiting to see if a chickadee will settle from its chattering perch to eat the seeds he's laid on a bare stone beside him. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. So we're going to have the next few poets here: Lori Bellamy, Suzanne Catrell, Len, then Bill Colford and Brian. I hope I don't ruin Lake. I hope I got that right. So just so you know what order you're going in. All right. So Lori Bellamy.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is my first time being published in Poetry Quarterly, and I've been writing poems most of my life, but only since the pandemic have I decided to send them places. And I wrote this one when we went into lockdown in Seattle, and I was missing the ocean. So it's called Go to the Ocean. Shoulder the wind, stand on a log as long as a tree and wish on the gray horizon. Walk along tide pools and see where eagles shuffle their muscular wings. Study the shapes between ocean and sky, ocean and sky. Wander on driftwood, shifting to shale. Watch epics passing with weathering rocks. Layers now tilted, now stretched, now compressed. The sea, the engine, the will of the world.
Very nice. I remember, I thought the line breaks on that were fantastic. And there's a sort of rhythm, right? There's a cadence to that poem. And the way you read it is how I saw it in my mind's eye, or how I heard it when I was going through it. And I'm very pleased. So that's great. Keep going. Good job.
Thank you.
Keep submitting. I expect to see you again. Susanna Case.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to read the title poem from the book I held up earlier, Dead Shark on the N Train, which came out during the lockdown in New York City, which was kind of tough, but then it won a Pinnacle Book Award in New York City Big Book Distinguished Favorite. So then, you know how that is. Then we start to feel better about the whole thing. So anyway, I live in New York City, and New York City is kind of a character in some of the poems that I write, in particular a few of these. And so the N Train is part of the subway system in New York City. And this is Dead Shark on the N Train. Poor brown fish beached at Coney Island, then carried in someone's arms to the roller coaster, where another man thought it beautiful and tried to transport it home, only to abandon it on the subway. And you know how it is in New York City, nothing surprises anyone. The car reeked of dead shark, and passengers took photos, debating Instagram filters, when the conductor asked everyone to leave and closed off that train. At the end of the line in Queens, a transit worker plastic bagged the body and normalized the car. I fled Queens when I grew up. Like sharks that migrate freely, I traveled to survive, didn't want to reach the end of my line in the same place I started out from, though I ended up just on the other side of the river. When someone on the number 1 had a heart attack and died, his corpse rode the loop from South Ferry to the Bronx and back to South Ferry twice. Like a man in his habitat, he seemed to be napping. Unlike the shark, no one put a Metro card under his fin, cigarette in his jaws, can of Red Bull by his side for the journey. Thank you.
Good speed. Good speed in that piece.
Is that actually something that you witnessed?
I did not witness it, but it did happen. I mean, not exactly as it is described in the poem, but yes, there was a shark on the membrane. Yes.
Great poem. I loved it.
Yeah, I think it captures perfectly the weirdness, the strangeness in New York City.
Yes, yes.
You can't really make that stuff up.
Okay, we have 27 people here. I can't see you all in one screen, but I'll try to switch it around so on the YouTube video everybody's represented well. Len Carver. You're very quiet. I can hear you, but it's very soft.
If I speak louder, can you hear this now?
I can hear you. Can everybody hear? No, yeah, it's still a little bit soft.
Quite a bit soft.
I don't know, technology.
Yeah.
Is that any good?
The last reading was you were loud enough. You know what I'll do? If you want, I can come back to you in a few minutes.
All right, you want to try that? Sure.
Yeah, we'll just mute you for now and then check your settings and see if it gives you any help. Bill Kofod, is that right? I think that's how you say your name. William is how you do it in print. Bill? Yeah, let me unmute you here.
Mic on there. Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. There you go.
You got me.
Yeah.
Okay. Gee, I feel strange here. Explanation of who I am. I started writing poetry in high school, kept writing it for the next 30 or 40 years. A few years ago, I compiled it all into a volume and printed it for myself on Lulu. That got me rewriting, re-energized. I did 2 or 3 more volumes, found them, published them on Lulu and put them for sale on Amazon, and then got into poetry and discovered none of those poems could be submitted anywhere. So I stopped doing that, but I kept writing poems and binding them for myself. And then I print a hardbound copy only for myself and don't sell them anymore. I bind about 240 poems to a volume, and at the moment I'm working on my 12th volume. I've had 25 poems all accepted or published at this point, but as I listen to the other poets, I wonder why the heck I'm here and how I get published at all. I describe myself as a Don Quixote in search of windmills. First poem, if I read 2, is called Mountain Trail. Sitting high on a mountainside, on a trail that few do climb, and looking down on the valley below, all the people who never ascend. I do not know of the peak above, nor of the trail that I climb. Only stories that I have heard, spoke by those who have not climbed. And I climb because I must, to answer the question that I have, of the things that no one knows, answers that can only be found above. My eyes will turn to the trail again, and my steps again will ascend to the place where I must go, and there to learn just who I am.
Bill, you know, hearing that poem and just rolling it around a little, I can't help but think that it's just a metaphor for writing, you know, the climbing, and that's how I took it.
It is exactly that. I was in speech therapy as a child for 11 years. I learned how to speak from a speech therapist, for I'm told I have a very unusual accent. And then I have a learning disorder, so I did terrible in English. So I am not a graduate of an MFA program somewhere. And a few years ago, I decided instead of reading other people's writing at lunchtime, I would simply sit down or on breaks and get a pen and paper and wait for my muse to come by and dump something on me. But that is a allegory. I write many, many, many allegories. Yes, I don't understand how I ended up writing poetry. I'm totally mind-boggled. I've had 25 poems accepted for print in actual real poetry journals and books. And that people have paid me for my poetry just blows my mind totally.
Well, keep writing. You have another one?
Yeah, I have another one from the summer issues called Warm Bed. When I awoke and left your bed, showered and dressed, slipped out the door. Dark clouds blocked the light of stars. Cold wind bit so very cold. The car seat was a cold embrace. The empty lights of my path ahead. A morning will come and a new day. Warmth will come again to me. Down lonely road in dark of night, where now dark clouds block the light.
Little musicality there. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for that. Ryan Lake?
You almost got it, Liak, yeah.
Liak, I'm sorry. I'll try and get that next time.
You're not the only one, trust me. Yeah, I'm Ryan Liak. This is my first time in Poetry Quarterly. I live in Los Angeles. I teach at USC, writing and rhetoric, and started writing poetry when I was about 15, but all of that is horrible and I would never let anyone read it. And so I finished a couple of books of poetry. They're both under review. That's kind of the only good thing to come out of the pandemic, I guess. And I write a lot about my daughter, who's 6 years old. She's kind of a vehicle to explore different themes and philosophies. And I write a lot about sort of in the ancient Chinese Taoist tradition. My wife is also Chinese, although we met here in high school. And we may be moving there as well. So I may be following the path of some of you here. And so the two poems, the short poems that were published or going to be published in Poetry Quarterly are from my book of poetry called On the Verge of Vanishing. And it kind of emulates the Tang Dynasty poetry in ancient China. And yeah, kind of a way to explore the Taoist idea of kind of inhabiting change and inhabiting kind of emptiness, right? And our thoughts coming and going and time passing. And I try to use my daughter and I try to use simple moments to explore that. So I'll read the first one. It's called Ephemera. Who will remember your voice as it was, tight as a rope, quick to cry, yet ready to yield a laugh, cultivating mornings with never an empty hand, the sliding door open and shut, curtains and chimes dancing, the sun casting shadows, making shapes, shifting too swiftly to be named. All ceaseless change, rhythm, and rest, in our own home, not masters, but guests. So, thank you. And the next one is called Linger. This is just a poem about going to work in the morning. So I'm very much in the Taoist sense of using, poetry as everyday life, I suppose. Early mornings, your hair loose, tangled like young roots, having fallen past your shoulders already. I look, I take notice. See your curls trailing down your back, grasping at something, eager to grow. It's morning. We are not permitted to linger. The door opens, your eyes all veiled tears. I should think to measure you when I return, to fix the distance rendered in a day. Thanks. And I should say that one line, we are not permitted to linger, is the opening line from my favorite poet, Rainer Maria Rilke, his poem To Holderlin. And it's a really
Fantastic.
Nice. Did you send, is that included in the poem that you submitted, a little note about that you borrowed a line?
Actually, no, I should probably, I'll put a note to send that to you just to.
Send it to me, I'll take care of it today.
Sure, great.
I like it. I think that it was well done, and I'm glad that you placed that. Claudia Saria, where are you?
Yeah.
You are.
Hi everyone, my name is Claudia Soraya. Like I said before, I was born and raised in Romania. I came to the United States in 1995. And I started writing poetry in English in 2004. And thank you, Glenn, for having me, and thanks everyone for spending your afternoon with us. I write a lot about history, and I want to read a poem about the Romanian Revolution. This year we celebrate in December 31 years since the Romanian Revolution, which occurred in 1989. It was the only regime change that was violent in Eastern Europe. And at the time, I was 19 years old, and I went home and made pork sausage with my mom. So this poem is based on an actual experience. And then after that, when the revolution arrived to Bucharest, I went to Bucharest and just distributed food aid and was kind of, person in the crowds. So I got to see that firsthand. And so I wrote a few poems about that. This poem is called Making Sausage in the Time of Revolution. This sausage is best made during martial law. Lights turn off and the window covered with a heavy blanket that still lets through the white streaks of the traces in the night sky. Place a candle in a cup. In its shaky light, we look like ghosts. Think of the ghosts in the streets. Think of the fires on barricades, the only candles these souls will have. On the table, set up the cast iron grinder with its large enamel maw, its helix, gears, and iron clamp. Think of the tanks and armored vehicles advancing like huge night insects, tens of boots grinding the pavement. Start grinding the lean meat and the white belly fat piece by piece, one red chunk, one white, one red, one white, red, white. Stuff the grinder, careful to not catch your fingers. Think of the grinder that smashes students, young men and women shouting, freedom, we love you, we either win or we die. Grind, 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 stop and listen to explosions and the giddy chatter of the guns. Add salt, pepper to taste, crushed cloves of garlic, and powdered sweet paprika. Taste the tear gas and pepper spray on students' faces. Sink your hands into the meat paste, hungry roots that turn and lift it, turn and lift again until blended and smooth. Add a little bone soup to soften the mix. Think of the water cannons, clotted bodies drenched in cold December. Pull the thin, almost transparent intestine onto the machine spout, bunched up, white like the stocking of a high school girl. Think of that girl crowned with sniper bullets and start pushing the paste in the machine against the machine. Push, 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 push with the force of a mudslide, its rage and fear and abandon. Push, 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 push until the dawn is born, unrecognizable and wet, and sanitation trucks roll in to wash the blood from the pavement. The candle burns to the bottom, and the only thing that remains is the smoke and the song in the hearts of the ones who survived.
That is a good poem.
Thank you. I want to read one from my book, if I may.
Yeah.
It's a totally different tone. It's for the title image, for the cover image of the book, which shows a wrench and a hammer. And the poem is called Sometimes I Feel Like a Mechanic. Sometimes I feel like a mechanic, hammer and wrench instead of hands, fitting the small parts, turning them this way and that until they lock together tight, teeth clenched. I test the wheels, try the belt, turn the engine on and on again, listening to the wheezing, the whir, until it works, and the growl comes on, and the propeller starts flipping and swooshing, and the shiny thing lifts into the air and flies into the world, leaving me behind with my grimy hands and grimy nails, grinning. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I would say that the first poem that you read, and you read it really well, it's just so powerful. And there are these layers where it sort of toggles back and forth between these images of wartime and kitchen experience and the metaphor of it all. So I don't want to be too presumptive. I assume all of you guys are probably going to grab the book. And if you do, definitely go and read that, because you'll remember the readings from these poets that you're enjoying the day with today. And sometimes the line breaks bring so much into those, you know, when you read it. I don't know, does everybody else have that experience when you read a poem as opposed to hearing somebody, you know, orate their poem? Sometimes you get more from the read.
Yes.
Right, or sometimes you don't quite there's emphasis in the actual oration that you didn't get from the book. I mean, it's a good compliment to each other. You can come back and watch this. I'm going to post this on Facebook. Len, did you get that worked out? You're on mute right now, my friend.
Yeah, I hit a button that increased the sound on the microphone. Is that good? Can you hear me?
You're very loud now.
Too much. Okay. You have a second? Should I bring it down or just talk lower?
Bring it down about 50%.
Okay. It's amazing I found anything. All right, let me see. Okay, here we go.
Okay, we have a minute. It's okay.
How's that?
Yep, very nice.
Is
Can
that
everybody
good?
hear?
Is that optimal? Okay.
A little louder, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, since we're all doing this.
How's this? Better?
There you go.
Better?
Yep.
That good? It's okay? Yeah, listen, this to me is a miracle. Anytime I get this thing right in the computer, it's a miracle. Anyway, yes, two poems, one short. First one, the longer one.
It says Len Wendy, but it's Len Carber.
Oh, yeah. That's my wife is Wendy, her English name.
Right. So
I don't know how that came up. I don't know how. I even know how I'm on this. To be honest with you, I just put the numbers. I don't know.
Just want everybody to know when they go to look at the book that's.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I'd like to compliment the group. And it's cliche, community poets, but I'm relating to people in many ways. Some of the older people that started writing later, like I did. I wrote when I was younger, and then 30 years I stopped writing. I don't know why, and it came back to me again. I don't know why either. A few years ago, and I've been published in maybe about 30 magazines in 5 countries, including Romania. Claudia, there's an on-site magazine called Poesis, and that impresses me. Anyway, and the gentleman, I think Bill had the speech defect. I had that too as a child. You know, talking to people, it's interesting. And by the way, just maybe part of, I maybe sometime I'll be curious if you all realize that we don't write the poems so much as they write us, because I feel that with myself. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel maybe that there's, in all the poems that I've been hearing, there's a satori effect, like a sudden realization, an awareness, and I'm gonna guess it comes to you, right? And like some people open the Bible and pick it to get inspired. I do it with the Oxford Book of American Poetry. And a few weeks ago, I opened it up at random. I came to Charles Bukowski's poem, So You Want to Be a Writer. And this line, I'm just going to read this quick. It says, when it is truly time, and if you have been chosen, it will do it by itself, and will keep on doing it until you die, or it dies in you. There is no other way. That really knocked me off my socks. Anyway, the first poem is the one that is coming in there. I guess is the new issue, the summer issue, Glenn, 2020.
It's coming out in like a week, and
okay.
all the fall poems for PQs have already been selected, and that's going to be just a few weeks out, and then we'll be on winter. So I opened the submissions to winter, and if you don't have any current submissions pending in the slush pile for winter, you can send those at this time.
Oh, but the very next one is going to be the summer issue, right? The 2020, I think. So I think that's what this one's in. Mm-hmm. This is called Quintessence of Dust. I stole it from Shakespeare, the title. I give it a nod with a nod to the bard. We are the moving dust. We are the breathing dust. We are the seeing dust. We are the living dust. But how, you ask, and rightly so, can dust fall asleep, dreaming of places unknown and lovers unmet? How can dust imagine whole worlds and love with one heart for 60 winters and 60 summers? And do the notes that stir life come also from dust? Just a little dust and nothing more? When the music is played and dust dances with dust, and dust laughs with dust, and soon dust loves dust, can dust ever understand the paradox of its own being from dust to dust? Not until the winds come, the warm winds of eternity, will dust be blown away, leaving the unseen soul alive to walk and breathe and dance and love, bathe forever in the dustless light. That poem is a 50-year manifestation of something I realized as a young man at 24 when I almost drowned, and I had a near-death experience. They weren't called that in a way, but I've been aware since then the essential paradox. Unlike a writer I admired, Nabokov, he wrote that his philosophy is the cradle rocks above an abyss, and common sense tells us that our true existence is but a brief crack of light between two eternities of darkness. I used to think that way. Now I realize that the paradox is that we are both mortal beings and immortal beings. But the mortal being has trouble comprehending or appreciating the immortal being, except on certain occasions. But I think if we think about it, I think this is where, I'm sorry I'm digressing, but this is where poetry, really good poetry, and I think these are all good poems because they're aware of this awareness. Unlike so much of poetry today that, I'm sorry, but it's just crap. It's so abstract, I can't understand it. But to be aware of where we are and our confusion and the paradox. So I'll read a brief one, the title poem from The Enormity of Existence. I'm seeking a plug-in for my book. I'm shameless. And this rhymes, so I never submitted. But I prefer free voice mostly. But this one came to me just like this, because it is the paradox of what we are as sentient beings. The enormity of existence. Can a denier believe? Can a man of God doubt? Can a prisoner leave? Can a king do without? Can children die? Can stars ordain? Can songbirds cry? Can deserts rain? Can killers heal? Can healers kill? Can the sun melt? Can it be felt? Can the soul see? Can my soul hear? Can God be? Can time disappear? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that whole theme of materialism versus this question of how do you define the qualia, the experience, seems to transcend materialism in our lives.
You can't define it. You experience, but you can't. I don't understand it. That's stuff I experienced.
Yeah, it's that top-down causation thing. I like it. Doug Van Hooser, are you here? I know some people are. There, oh, there you are, buddy. Okay.
I'm going to read a poem that's actually inspired by the 3-line poem series that the press runs. So it's a series of 3-line thoughts, which I call unbleached thoughts. My mind an attic, trinkets of the past, now boders of the present. What I hear is the constant drip that annoys and leaves a stain. That which should not have happened panhandles into the middle of the road with a sigh, homeless, please help. The blanched idea that equal has no time zones. There are no rounding errors. I succeed by blaming someone else, use failure's credit card to pay down my self-respect. No bitter yearning, no sweet escape. A thick haze inertia perpetuates. Breast fog surrenders to the code without words. I get hung on the noose of what matters. The secret the wind whispers to the leaves, the tear that streaks the cheek, the echo of a sigh. A message sent that has no banks, no levees, no dam, no control of the runoff. No one cries out or sheds tears when they scratch their brow. Second place is my home, almost but not quite my mantra. The finish line, a handshake. Disappointment slouches in the chair, stares at the clock as it repeats itself. Most things die from the inside out, but rot from the edges in. The writing was on the wall I fell from and slipped in the bubble that burst.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thanks, Doug. I'm going to try and move just a little more quickly. We are at we have 40 minutes left, and I just want to ask, is there anyone who can't stay that wants to go ahead? Okay.
Go swimming with my granddaughter.
Okay, that's nice. All right. Somebody that's not sitting at home, what's going on? That's okay. So let's do that. You'll have to introduce everyone to you Carolyn's iPad.
Can you all hear me? Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
So I'm using my wife's iPad. My name is McGregor, Frank. First name McGregor. This is a poem called 12, as in 12 years old. It's a poem about discovering sexuality or being first aware of sexuality when I was riding horseback with the daughter of a friend on a ranch in Texas. It's called 12. Hoof clop, clear water, rounded stone, the stream bed where we found Pecos diamonds. We looked for snakes to frighten us, not diamonds, diamondbacks. We looked in the cave with painted walls, in warm places by the well. Our horses climbed the yellow hill. She had new breasts and blue eyes. I could not meet her gaze. Thanks.
Make sure there we go. Sorry about that. That was well done. That subject matters. It's great when it's gentle, right? These days, it's like, oh, what's he going to say? It was great. Very, very nice. Wholesome. I appreciated it. Okay. Niche, it says on her screen.
That's Lynn Esposito.
Oh, Lynette. Hi, Lynette. I'm great. Thanks.
I have a 16-month-old granddaughter who's learning to swim. So grandma has to put on a swimsuit. Oh my God. Get in the water with her. Hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. I have 3 little poems. They're not very literary, but they're kind of light. One is to my husband. When my husband stood, he swayed. I hated it. until I saw Luciano Pavarotti swaying while he sang and thought, sometimes I cannot see the music right in front of me. And we have all this political stuff about what's important. So I wrote this little poem on a burnt hill. Social media shows a face, unlike my own, but full of grace. White whiskers, burnt, scared eyes, weak muse, like human baby cries. I am so touched, I wish my tears could rain the fires and calm its fears. The face is orange, but I don't care. Sweet little one holds my stare. All the smoke-filled stars stand still. No human face touches my will more than this small kitten in human hands, scarred by damage to its homelands. So kneeling quietly in prayer for the small creature suffering there, I know all lives matter, large or small. Please, Lord, have mercy on them all. And then I have one last one real quick. It's about best friends in this pandemic. I think we've learned to value all of you poets. I value you. Thank you so much. And so I wrote this one, Best Friends, in honor of George and Attilio. Roads are long and the path is often hidden, but friends make the journey a better time. Friends come with arms outstretched, unbidden. I speak of yours. I speak of mine. I speak of yours, I speak of mine, and hope you hear, wherever you have gone or go, that we are friends through all of time. And if time stops, it will still be so. That's it.
Very nice. Thank you. You know me, I like short poems. You know, I really do. When people choose just the right word, when they're so purposeful and the compression is there, it's really, really nice. Let's see here. Is Ginny Pina here? Hey, Ginny, can you unmute?
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
I'm actually right under Virginia Watts, but that's my pen name. So thank you. It's been wonderful listening to all these poems. What a treat. I just have one for you I'm going to read that I grew up in Hershey, and it was a predominantly Catholic town. We were one of the few families that weren't Catholic, so I was obsessed with everything Catholic, and particularly all the pictures and statues of Mary. And as a child, I couldn't figure out why she was so prominent. It was almost as if she was more important than Jesus, and I guess maybe I hope so. But so this poem appeared in a journal called From the Depths not too long ago, and the title is Detour to the Statue. My purple snow boots punch holes through ice-crusted sidewalks, looping the St. Joan of Arc Church and Parish School. I'm on my way to Daniela Sabatini's 10th birthday party, strolling the Italian side of my hometown, where the families live who built this town, generations who toiled inside Milton Hershey's chocolate factory, opened a grocery store, shoe shop, restaurants, birthed squalling babies and baptized them. My Protestant mother puzzles over this Catholic majority, gold medals around their necks, a multitude of saints and ceremonies. Daniela's first Holy Communion dress years ago, so elaborate, worn on one occasion only, the day her soul married Jesus Christ. When his mother calls me out to me now, it is only a female hum in winter wind. I know she stands in the garden beside the house where the priests live, where nuns clothed to their toes in black cook, clean, and do laundry. No human woman has hair the color of rain-soaked tree bark, a scalp that sprouts a perpetual gold and pink crown, a dress the robins spun from spring's blue skies. I see what her problem is. Standing on my tiptoes, I brush the snow out of her mouth. She looks down at me, smiles, and whispers, "Run."
Very nice. Okay, where are we at here? These poems that have religious icons in them, you'll notice that Poetry Quarterly, we publish those. We publish Buddhist poems. We publish a variety of spiritual ideas, because they're part of us. You know, that's part of who we are, and we grow up with it. And it's then when you're old enough to have something to say and you want to write about whatever, it's there. And I noticed recently I was in a forum with a few other journals editors, and they were talking about how they just don't. We're not going to publish that. That's off limits. And, you know, you can't say Jesus Christ in a poem. And that's not how I feel. And I appreciate people. Bring your heart. You know, it doesn't have to be the same ideas that I have or anyone else has, but if it's honest and it's a good poem, it's probably going to get published. Herb. So we have some people.
Hi, I'm Herb Cowder. I started writing when I learned to read when I was 8, and I've been writing ever since. I managed to flunk out of college and get trapped into a hourly laborer's job, but I kept writing and begged my way back into college. So I spent 20 years and a month as a teamster, usually working in a factory, but occasionally driving trucks, including tractor trailers, which I was never good at driving. And for the last 21 years, I've been an English professor at Hilbert College. Somewhere along the line, I got a disturbing number of degrees as well. I've had about 1,800 poems published, which is sort of overwhelming to myself, especially if you add in all the ones I wrote that weren't published. And I'll read something very short to start with. Could have world. Somewhere there's a world full of my other selves. People I might have been, but wasn't. I bet they all fight like hell. And I'll try another one that's a little bit longer. This one was in Poetry Quarterly in 2015. Actuary hearts. There are no insurance charts for driving the heart. No tables of risk with vulnerability on one axis and romantic fatality on the other. There are no ways to measure the cost of exposing new wounds to air before scabs have hardened to scar tissue. There are no agents to settle claims, no discounts for safe driving, and no seatbelts at all. Just endless collisions and damage forever unpaid.
Thanks, Herb. Appreciate how long some of you have waited to sneak in there. These short poems, they're great. That was good. And I enjoyed that. Keep it up. Leanne, hi. It's you.
Hi. So, as you know, my name is Leanne, and I'm going to read a short poem, which is a reflection on parenting, and it was published in Poetry Quarterly in the fall of 2018. And it's called The Medicinal Properties of Jelly Beans. There was a time when I could mend you. A painful scrape was not a complicated thing, just a Band-Aid tenderly placed, an encouraging word, and a Jolly Rancher or two. Monsters under the bed, kindergarten anxieties, could often be calmed with a cuddle on the couch, a bowl of ice cream, and an episode of Wild Kingdom. I grieve for your childhood, not because I wish you innocent or dependent, or that I find you less lovable in your adult packaging, but because I could gather your pain in my arms carry an antidote to your disappointments in my pockets, and help to chase away your demons with a handful of jelly beans.
Yeah, I like the picture behind you. It's on the wall.
Yeah, that's yours.
That's funny. Great. Thank you. That makes me very happy to see that. Nice poem. Thanks for that. Uh-oh. I think I messed it up somehow. Okay. Salvatore.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked. Whoops.
Okay. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. First of all, I want to thank you for doing this, and it's really nice to see different poet faces and hearing different voices than the regular people I hang out with. Do you want poems mainly from Poetry Quarterly or other poems?
No, anybody that's been published with us is welcome to read whatever they feel.
Because I think it's my third poem coming up, being published, but I want to read a couple very short poems from my previous books. I have 3 books out, all from Ice Cube Press, and I just learned this morning that my 4th book is called Sneezing Coyotes, as of now, working title, will be coming out in September. So we got to get a gallery together and get all the blurbs and be shameless and all that stuff. And I'm going to be shameless one more time. February 1st, I'm doing a virtual reading for the Davenport, Iowa Library. So Davenport, Iowa, February 1st. So what I'm going to do is going to read 2 poems from my previous books. And go to Ice Cube Press, you can read all the blurbs and everything. This poem is from Swiss Shrew Sniff. And they're all short. It's called Fate of a Sicilian Orange. Rosa holds the fruit in her left hand. A knife in her right penetrates the peel, an inch below the top. The steel passes through the white rind, stops before it touched the pulp. Then the dagger etches a thin line circle. She turns the citrus upside down. The blade scores another ring and unites the southern and northern caps with longitude lines. She passes the globe and its continents to me. This is a Christmas poem, I guess. Something, a reminder of where your Christmas lights come from. Christmas decor cheer. Epigraph. Nobody gets paid anything. If you didn't work, you didn't get food. NPR Morning Edition Report, May 29th, 2014. Mildew, smell, fouls, Chinese prison cells with no window, chair, bed, mat. 40 men sleep on their sides like folders stuffed in cabinets. Each hopes an official picks his file, brings to a hearing no one has. When guards say the sun shines, inmates wake stripped to underwear to stop their clothes soak sweat. When march in place for an hour, the next 10 they squat, push frosted bulbs into sockets, attach to green wires. Bosses flog on bare backs, beat contract deadlines, government has. And that's from Fermentations.
When did that come out?
When the Fermentation came out about 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. So it's going to be 4 years. The next book will be coming out, or when this one coming out, since this book came out. So
That's great. I love to hear you guys getting books out. I do so much of the editing and stuff on my side. It's really hard to find time to mail anything out.
Yeah.
That whole idea of just writing a poem about the experience of, cutting an orange or something, people don't. Poets understand it. We get it, right? You can really do a lot with that, right? And it's fantastic. I had a poem a few years ago that I wrote where the sun became I said it was a peach pit in the sky. And I think I wrote that because somebody wrote an orange in the sky, and I said, I can't write that. Somebody else wrote that. What else is like that? And then I came up with peach pit, and then people say, where do you come up with that stuff? And you kind of get inspiration from other people, try to say things differently, and you can take something as simple as peeling an orange or cutting an orange open, and you can say it differently. And it isn't, that whole idea of everything's been said. It's how it's been said, though, right? We can say it differently. We can say it poetically. We could say it in a way that makes people salivate and wonder what's happening. It's just fantastic. Let's see. Forgive me here. John Caprillion. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Hi, everyone. I have been writing poetry for a long time, probably about 30 years. And I've had a couple poems published in Poetry Quarterly. I've had about 50 or so poems published elsewhere. I'm going to read a couple. First one, I was reminded of this poem when I heard Peter read his. So I thought I'd pull this one up. It's called Simulacrum. Bare gray branches frame the cloud-spotted winter blue sky. The scream of a red-tailed hawk strikes my ears, and I search for its silhouette beyond the crosshatch of trees, but come up empty. It screams again, so close I should feel the wind pushed off its wings, hot breath from its beak, yet somehow it remains hidden from view. Then, a peripheral flutter, and I spin and face a blue jay, glassy eyes cocked and staring boldly. Beak open, it shrieks, a perfect red-tail cry, and I know I've been duped by this cloud-spotted, winter blue simulacrum. Back in 2012, I decided, I hadn't been writing for a long time, and I decided I'd get back into it by writing a poem a day for a year. I did that. And then I decided, well, now that I have 366 poems, I think I'll publish them, which, like one of the other poets mentioned, once I did that, I realized, oh, well, geez, I can't actually submit those anywhere else. But I've been working with a local poetry workshop and been writing quite a bit, and I've been doing a lot of submissions, and I've gotten quite a few things published. This poem here is called Porch of Dreams, and just read this. This one, the last one was published in naturewriting.com, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. This one appeared in Minute Magazine, I believe. It's called Porch of Dreams. It looks out over the lake, supports our chairs and the weight of a million childhood memories. Everything is different now, yet still the same, as if each blade of grass was fixed and the island was a painted backdrop, while all else decayed and was rebuilt in a new but different form. But this porch is unchanged, its pillars white, thick with layers of paint like tree trunks growing imperceptibly. Railings where we sat and talked and watched the fireflies choreograph the hot summer evenings. Opening act for the stars and meteors that would flood the late night sky as we lay on our backs and spoke of futures that never came to pass.
Very nice. It reminded me of Dylan Thomas there a little bit, those extended lines, and they're very good.
Thank you.
Irina, hey, you've been so patient. Just down there in the corner of my screen. Moga?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Irina Moga. I lived most of my life in Romania before coming to Canada. And I'm now in Toronto where I live and write. It's my first, I guess, publication, Poetry Quarterly. So I'm excited to read a poem. I'll read a poem from my poetry book called Sea Glass Circe. And since I believe poetry is an exercise in reflection, I'll read this poem, which is an exercise in self-reflection, a sort of an auto-portrait. A prelude to pollen. Hollow, the bastion of the garden awaits the hoe, the hose's mercury gurgle, and a spate of seeds and bulbs, aided by unscrupulous winds. A prelude to pollen, abundant pollen that would cling to my toes come end of June, sticky and yellow, now simply a curtain surmised among yet to be measured rhizomes and fumes. A coalescing weight that hangs on to a barely discernible crown. As I lay claim to my throne, I, the queen of mulch. Okay, so that's it for me. I think I'm mindful. I know there are other poets waiting to read their own work. So over to you, Glenn.
Thank you. We are wrapping down. That whole pollen thing, the sticky, I just love that. It's I didn't get it when I lived in Indiana. I didn't really get that. When I moved to Virginia Beach, I woke up one day and I went out to, at the time I was going to law school, I was living in this apartment. I went out there and I opened the sliding glass door and I had a little balcony and there was all this yellow all over, like this blanket of yellow, and I didn't know what it was. I had never seen that before. I mean, I heard of pollen and I've seen the videos of little bees with pollen sticking to their feet and things, but I never realized it could be a blanket. You know, you could wake up one morning and there it is. And that is, that's great. Nicely done. Okay, Alan, I know that you don't have video maybe, but we can hopefully hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been writing for about 60 years. I'm a retired physician. And the first poem is related to that, but also very similar to Leanne's poem in subject matter.
Alan,
it's called The Limit. Yeah?
What's your last name?
Alan Cohen, C-O-H-E-N.
Oh, yes, okay.
It's called The Limits of Modern Medicine. Just behind your breastbone is a heart that doesn't beat right. The harder it works, the less it does, which took us 6 months to discover, me and the cardiologist. Your heart beats like a clock with sand grains scattered among its jewels, or a jaguar running on 3 legs. At first, we thought your arteries were clogged, like the ones that bury most of the rest of us. But then, even after we knew better, and I gave you the pills like it says to in the book, still your heart went on beating wrong. A little less wrong, perhaps, but wrong all the same. I wanted to say, I'll have this heart fixed in time for tea, no problem. But you were still short of breath when you walked, when you bent to smell a flower. It simply wouldn't come right, so we drifted to other things. After a few visits, we did learn to talk right. And so we talked of your family and feelings, ignoring your wobbling heart. You'd say, I can't cope, I can't go on. And I, of course you can, and try to explain why, which you already knew but liked to hear. Next month, you'd return and say, everything is so much better. And I'd recall so many others who'd never felt better even when they were. Often, it seemed like you were coming to treat me, but you did feel better. And I had done something, I don't know quite how, for your feelings and family, though your flawed heart kept on beating wrong in your chest, like a fire under a blanket, or a song missing 3 notes, like a doctor trying to fix a heart that beats wrong with kind words.
That image of your heart beats like a watch with sand scattered in the jewel action of the watch, that just really that stuck out to me. That was great. That's a good image.
I have one other thing I'd like to share if I can, because it kind of is, it's new. I just wrote it. That other one was 30 years ago. This one is just a thought thing, which I think most poets may feel. But this is called Poets Should Never Submit. Students and workers apply. Athletes try out. Performers audition. Why is it only writers who are required to submit? Submission's masochistic. It's what citizens do, kowtow before dictators, what losers do before winners. To people to whom words are everything, it is a consummate insult. We create. It is a joy, but also a struggle. And we all work as well. We write on our own time out of love, of discipline and music and mankind. And when we contact publishers, we feel we are offering, sharing, contributing. So how was this dreadful linguistic convention established? No matter, it must end. Editors need to find a new way to ask and stop calling on writers to submit.
Well, thanks for the submission. That was good. I like that.
I mean, obviously, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but the goal is to make people think about it.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like what. It's what we do. We look at things differently. All right, so I'm just looking at my list here. It looks like Max is gone. I have Eleanor Cantor. Is she here? I don't think so. Wrapping up here. JB Elliott couldn't stay. Is that true? That is true. Mike was not able to. Denise, are you here? I saw her sneak in. Nope. Oh, yeah, there you are. You have to unmute. Let me just do that.
So sorry, I joined really late because I'm on, we just moved, to for the winter, and I'm on Arizona time. So I was expecting to join 2 hours later.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just very confused, but I'm just trying to find my poem here. Is there somebody who could go before me, and I will just, I'll have it just in a minute.
Yeah, take your time. We're off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I will have it here. Sorry to keep you waiting. I have it right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to read the poem that will go into Poetry Quarterly now. that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's called, sorry, I'm actually using it here on, while I'm with you. It's called Hidden Details. It's in memory of my father. And I'll start that now. He loved to make people laugh, drew jokes from his pocket like magic tricks, deft and slick, his voice. The magic ink of his telling, his jokes faded with the passing light. Loss left me like a child grasping at snowflakes. Details melted away, hidden in the drifts between words. I find him anew in the contoured path of his smile, deep curves of his cheeks, the tilt of his head as he leans in. The tilt of his head as he leans in, the glint in his eyes, like the hint of sun on snow in winter, as he segues his turn, a phrase seen set with flair, word by slow hand-picked word, a final pause, then a gold nugget pulled from the air, the punchline, never forgotten.
That is such a great ending. Well, don't we all kind of love those little moments where someone has the golden nugget pulled from the ether somehow, the punchline of something? It's just what brings it together. And that with poetry, I mean, we want poems to end strong, you know, to have a strong ending. Do you have another?
I'd have to find one. Is there a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minutes. I was, what I do sometimes is I'll just talk. I go through the slush pile and I'm reading poetry all day long. And I take little breaks because sometimes it's just tiring. It just becomes mentally difficult because when I'm reading, I'm not just reading the surface of a poem. I'm looking for the symbolism and all the layers and what poets that person sort of sounds like, and thinking about the collection of poems that we have for a particular issue and whether they're going to mesh well with each other. If there's another poem that I remember that sort of clicks with something. And to give my brain a little bit of a break, I keep a pad of paper beside me as I'm reading the slush pile. And every once in a while, I will write down a line or a word that I remember from a poem that I read, or a thought that, you know, I thought a poem was going one direction, but it didn't. And I call them unused lines. And then later on, when I decide to write things, I'll go back and I'll just sort of look at my unused lines. I'll share a few of them with you. Let me just scroll up. Being clear is the riskiest art. So sometimes they're just little weird things. He had a face like a discarded dumpling. Another one, a face like a twisted root. Birds filling the air with gossip. I need a nap. I think I might have just wrote that one. Pulsing with sex like a firefly in a jar. Silverfish leaping toward the shore. Just little things like that. That I've got a huge list of them, and I won't share, but it's a useful tool, and it's a lot of fun to go back sometimes and just look at these little snippets. Does anybody else keep a little book of ideas, thoughts? Yeah, I see a couple of hands. A dream journal, anybody do that? Ryan, William? Yeah, you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm gonna write that down and try to do something with it later. It's great, that subconscious thing. It's fantastic.
I find that my poems sometimes come to me in the morning after I wake up, and I literally have to write them down right away, or I lose them. I mean, they're gone. They write themselves almost completely, and I don't know if it's coming out of my unconscious mind or where, maybe deeper, but it's a weird thing. And I learned that to keep pen and paper nearby me, because I'm serious. If I don't write them down right away, they're gone. And like 90% are like that. It's weird, it's strange. And do people have that too?
You know, I have something similar, but it's more that I'm working on poems in the night, poems that I'm actually working on. I'll find I wake in the, well, sometimes in the night I have to get up and write them down, but they pieces I've been struggling with, and I seem to resolve them in my sleep sometimes. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, we all have a different process. Okay, are you ready with another one?
Yes, thank you. I'll find it here. Sorry, it isn't coming up. Yes, this one is from that I published in Poetry Quarterly session or two, you know, 1 or 2 journals ago. It's called Spaces. How free from clutter this open road, how limitless the space in my mind, like a stretch of the Milky Way outside my bedroom window. So close, as a child I reached out to touch it, each lustrous star shifting away from my small palm. Crows call out, a hawk soars above, 2 deer across the road ahead. We slow. They hold our view, but intrude so little on our space, like the spark of an idea or a beam of light illuminating the way. Wildflowers erupt at the road's fringe, like the burst of a child's laughter, sporadic, unlimited, overflowing their spaces, coloring the cornfields that stretch for miles beyond.
Good end.
Glenn, I had a question, if it's okay. What's the best way to read a poem? I find it very difficult knowing where to pause, you know, whether the lines, should one pause at the end of the line or at the end? You know, if you pause after it's grammatically right, you miss the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I find like, I'm not sure how you do that best.
Yeah. Okay, so when we write poetry and we're reading the written word, naturally at the line break, our eye is going to drop down to the next line, and there's this half of a pause there.
Right.
So a lot of poets describe it as half a comma. It's
at the end of the line, yes.
Every line. And so some people write poems that read fast and then have sort of take on more meaning when they're read with those pauses and the line breaks, because it adds to it. So it would be very presumptuous of me to say there's a right and a wrong way to read a poem. It's your poem, so you should read it the way that you intend people to hear it. But it's okay to have a different, to approach it from the position that I'm going to have 2 different types of interpretations of this poem, one when it's spoken and one when it's read. And I know a lot of poets that won't read certain poems. They wrote that poem to be read, and that is it. They don't want to read it because it diminishes it and it informs the reader of a certain approach to the poem that they don't want the reader to have. They want each reader to either interpret it for themselves, or they want those small pauses in the reader's mind that you can't get fully when you read something. So there's no easy answer to that.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have a question? Well, that works for me. So, all right. Well, you know what? We're right on time. It's 3 o'clock. I'm not gonna read. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all. I am going to go ahead and do another reading event. I think 2 weeks, something like that. 2 or 3 weeks. And the fall poets are going to be encouraged to come and read their fall work. And you're all invited to come and read again. If you want to be part of it, I'll send that invite out for everyone. Okay? Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. It's great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.